I was sitting in my living room a few weeks ago watching a podcast about ADHD, and I had to keep stopping it. Not to take notes, just to breathe, because this psychiatrist was describing one by one things I had spent my entire life believing were character flaws. The way I can't execute what I know, the strategy I abandon the second it starts working, the stop loss I simply cannot set. And I mean cannot, not won't, cannot. No matter how many books I've read, no matter how many times I've watched, it cost me everything. He said something I need you to hear because it may be the sentence that changes how you see yourself forever. He said, "You've been blaming your character for what actually is your wiring." I've been trading for 13 years, okay? I've read almost every book. I've listened to almost every podcast there is on discipline that you can name, and I think I've actually probably listened to all of them. And I still gave back everything I made, still. At a level that would make most people walk away from this game. And I didn't walk away, which tells you something about me. But it also tells you something about this particular wound. Because that same part of me that refuses to set the stop, that same fierce, defiant, exhausting, beautiful part, is the same one that keeps showing up at the screen every single morning. This morning, I finally understood where that came from. And if you've ever sat in front of a red account and thought, I knew better. Why didn't I do better? Just stay with me. Because this is not a video about discipline. You've watched enough of those. Let me show you what the cycle actually looks like. Not the trading textbook version, the real one. The one that happened at around 9:47 in the morning when the position is moving against you. So the trade sets up beautifully. You enter, it moves your way, you feel it. I mean, that particular kind of alive that only traders understand. And don't tell me you don't know what I'm talking about. And then it turns. Slowly at first, but then faster. And somewhere in your body, not your mind, your body, a voice says, set the stop. And another voice, quieter, but much older, says, you're not the boss of me. And you hold, and you hold, and you tell yourself it's coming back. And sometimes it does, which is the cruelest part because now the voice has evidence. See, you were right to hold. The slot machine paid out, and your nervous system files that away and calls it a strategy until the time it doesn't come back. And you give it all back. The week, the month, and sometimes even more. And then you sit there in the aftermath, and you do the thing we all do. You open a journal or a trading forum, or if you're like me, you find another podcast on discipline, and you tell yourself, I just need to be more disciplined. Well, I want to gently, lovingly tell you that sentence is going to keep costing you, not because discipline doesn't matter, but because you've been trying to fix a wound with a willpower bandage, and the wound is older than your trading account, and I mean much older, which is exactly what I want to show you next, because when I tell you where this voice actually comes from, something is going to happen in your chest, and I need you to be ready for that. So I want to introduce you to someone. She's 14 years old. She's smart, probably too smart for the room she's in. She reads everything. She understands things adults don't give her credit for. And she has learned through years of very specific and very painful education that the people in charge of her life will use their authority to serve themselves, not her. She watched someone she trusted take away her right to make a decision about her own body. Not because it was right, because it was convenient. Because the authority in the room had needs that came before hers. And that girl, she made a decision, not consciously, not the way you and I make decisions, but the way the nervous system makes decisions deep, wordless, and permanent. No one will ever have that kind of power over me again. No rule, no limit, no authority, no one. She meant it as survival. And it was survival in that room with those people at that age. The refusal was the only protection she had. That girl is still at your keyboard. Every time the stop loss appears on your screen, something ancient in you reads it as someone is trying to control what you do with what's yours. And every cell in your body that learned to survive by refusing fires. Not because you're undisciplined, not because you're reckless, not because you don't know better, because you do know better. And that 14-year-old girl, she doesn't care. She's not listening to your strategy. She's listening for the sound of someone trying to take something from her. And the market, with its rules and its limits and its hard stops, sounds exactly like that room. I know this because that girl is me. And I've spent 13 years wondering why I can teach a whole room to set their stops and then sit at my own screen and blow through mine like they don't even exist. It's because knowing the rule and following the rule are two different nervous systems. And the second one, the one that actually follows through, it can't be built through more books. It can only be built when the 14-year-old finally gets told the truth nobody told her. Setting the stop is not surrender. It is the first time in your life you get to decide what you're willing to lose on your own terms, for your own reasons, with no one else's hand on the wheel. That's not someone controlling you. That is you, finally in control. The stop is not the cage. The refusal is the cage. And here's where it gets both harder and more hopeful at the same time, because there is a name for this pattern. And that name, when I finally heard it, felt like someone had handed me an instruction manual for my own brain. The psychiatrist in that podcast used a phrase I haven't been able to stop thinking about. He said, people who have spent a lifetime struggling in relationships, at work, with money, with the gap between knowing and doing, often reach a moment where everything shifts. Not a healing, not a fix, a shift. From I am the problem to I have a brain that wasn't understood by anyone, including me. And here's what I need to say very carefully because I mean it. I am not here to diagnose you. I am not a psychiatrist. I am not telling you that blowing up an account means you have ADHD. It doesn't. And anyone who tells you that isn't being honest with you. What I am saying is this. If you have ever felt like you're too smart to keep making the same mistake, if you know the rule and break it anyway, every time, in the same way, at the same moment, if the strategy that works always gets abandoned exactly when it starts working, you might be living with a nervous system that was never taught to work with your brain. And that's not a character flaw. That's a wiring question. The ADHD brain, and again, I'm just going to use the word brain, not label, not diagnosis, is built for novelty, for the rush of the new thing, for intensity, for the alive feeling, which is, and I say this with genuine love, a fairly inconvenient setup for a profession where the entire job is to run the same boring, proven edge over and over without flinching. Good trading is repetitive by design. And a brain wired for novelty will abandon the thing that's working precisely because it's working. Because working means it got quiet. And quiet to this brain feels like dying. So you find the next strategy, the next system, the 47th indicator, not because you're weak, because your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do, and nobody ever told you that. So you called it a discipline problem, and you flogged yourself for another decade. And underneath that wiring, in my case, and maybe in yours, there's a wound. A wound about control, about being too much or never enough, about learning early that your needs were inconvenient, that your feelings were too big, that the only way to survive was to perform okay so that nobody could see how much you were bleeding. I did that for 50-something years. I did it so well that even my therapist didn't understand why I was in therapy. Think about that. And I did it at the trading desk. Right up to the morning I watched that podcast and had to keep stopping it, not to take notes, but just to breathe. And I finally understood that the trader I'd been fighting all this time wasn't an undisciplined mess. She was a 14-year-old girl doing the only thing she knew how to do, refusing to let anyone take what was hers. I think it's time we gave her something better than a fight. Here's what I've learned and what I want to leave you with today. That 14-year-old, she doesn't need to be fixed. She doesn't need more discipline. She doesn't need to be dragged out of the trading room and locked in a closet while the rational adult takes over. She needs to be told the truth. So here's the truth I'm learning to tell her every morning, sometimes every hour. Hey, sweetie, I see you. I know you don't trust limits. I know what happened when you followed the rules someone else made for you. I know why no feels like the only safe answer. But this stop, this one, that one right there, nobody handed it to you. Nobody is using it against you. This stop is you deciding for the first time in your life exactly how much you're willing to lose. And then holding that line. That's not someone else's authority, honey. That's yours. In 12-step programs, we talk about step 3, turning your will over. And for a long time, I fought that step the way I fought the stop loss. Because surrender to a nervous system that survived by never surrendering sounds like death. But here's what I've come to understand, both in the rooms and at the screen. Surrender to a limit you chose is not weakness. It is the most powerful thing a defiant can do. Because it means the authority you're finally listening to is you. That's what I'm calling the sovereign. Not the trader who follows every rule without question, not the one who's finally disciplined enough. The sovereign is the one who trusts herself so completely that she doesn't need to burn down the account to prove nobody owns her. She sets a stop because she said so, which, if you know me at all, is the only reason I have ever done anything. Before you trade this week, before you open the platform, before you check pre-market, before you touch a single position, I want to invite you to try something small. One breath, both feet on the floor, hand on your chest if it feels right, and say out loud or inside, wherever you are, I am allowed to protect what's mine. Not I will be disciplined, not I will follow the rules. I am allowed to protect what's mine. Because, and I'm talking to myself right now, the stop isn't punishment, it's protection. And you are finally old enough to choose it for yourself. And I want to say one more thing before I let you go. And I'm going to say something I don't usually say on camera, but last week I walked into my own room, the room I built for traders exactly like you, and I said the true thing out loud for the first time. I said, I can't set my stops. I don't know what's wrong with me. I cannot set my stops, and I might have to stop trading. And I waited for what I spent my whole life waiting for after I told the truth. Abandonment, judgment, someone deciding I was too broken to belong. Instead, they held me. Every single person in that room held me. And I could feel the love and support. And in the days after, people reached out, not to fix me, not to tell me what I was doing wrong, just to say, me too. I see you. You're not alone in this. I built that room because I knew traders needed it. I didn't know how badly I needed it too. If any part of this episode landed, if something in your chest moved when I described that 14-year-old at the keyboard, I want you to know that that room exists for you. It's called Overtraders Anonymous. We meet Sundays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, and it is the one place I know where traders put the real number on the table, not the curated one, not the up big one that you see on Twitter, the real one. And nobody flinches because everybody in the room is already holding their own version of the same thing. The link is in the description. You're welcome there exactly as you are, exactly as broken and brilliant and still showing up as you are right now. Next week, we're going to go one floor deeper because I want to talk about something that might be the most important question a trader can ask themselves. What are you actually buying when you open that position? Because for a lot of us, and I am raising my hand here, it was never really about the money. I'll see you there. I'm Devin Mills, certified trauma-informed life coach for traders and the founder of Overtraders Anonymous. It was never discipline. It was always you doing the best you could with a brain nobody taught you how to use. And you have always been enough.